Yo, what's up everybody, Joe again, welcome back to another Naruto reaction video here today. And today we got a pretty interesting video by the great Swagkage, as you can tell by the title. This is explaining the Susanoo. So folks, this ability grants the user the ability to use a human-like avatar that is essentially an extension of their will. I like to compare this ability to that of the Green Lanterns from DC Comics, because similarly, the Green Lanterns use their abilities through their willpower, right? So in some sense, to some extent, this is similar. And some of the most powerful individuals within the entire Naruto history have had this ability. You know, the likes of Madara Uchiha, Sasuke Uchiha, Itachi Uchiha. Those are legendary figures within the Naruto verse, and they happen to have this spectacular ability. It really gives you a new arsenal of offensive and defensive capabilities, right? It gives you a major defensive tool. I mean, we've seen the likes of the Swagkage and Tsunade punch it point blank with pretty much their full power, and sometimes that's not enough, right? Madara's ribcage was cracked when Tsunade did it, but the point is, the Susanoo is a very overpowered ability, and it just happens to be so that the most powerful Uchiha have this ability that just illuminates the threatening nature of the Uchiha clan. But I'm very excited to see what Swag has to say about this one. But before we begin, any loves really appreciate, hit that like button, turn on bell notifications to stay updated with yours truly. And if you're new and you enjoy and you mess with the kid, man, make sure to hit that sub button, because once you do, become part of the family forever. But instead of wasting more time, screen, let's see what Swag has to say about the Susanoo.
Alright, what's going on everybody? Swagkage.
What up?
Welcome to today's video, where as you can tell, we're going to be talking about the Susanoo. I briefly covered the Susanoo a bit in my Mangekyo Sharingan video a little over a year ago, but I didn't explain every aspect of it. Well, I did explain a bit of the requirements to unlock the Susanoo, and I briefly touched on the different stages of development it has. There's a whole lot more to it than what I explained in that video, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Susanoo is the ability a person unlocks after they've unlocked the abilities of both of their Mangekyo Sharingan. And as you can tell, this means that it is a Sharingan exclusive ability. There's a bit of a widespread myth in the Naruto community that a person has to be able to use Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi to activate the Susanoo.
Yeah, that's definitely incorrect.
Madara can't use Amaterasu or Tsukuyomi. Sasuke can't use Tsukuyomi. Shisui certainly can't use Amaterasu or Tsukuyomi. And Kakashi and Obito definitely can't use either of these abilities.
Correct.
As I explained in the Mangekyo Sharingan video, all Mangekyo Sharingan grant a person different powers. So unlocking a specific set of abilities isn't required to use the Susanoo at all. The only prerequisite is for a person to be able to use the abilities in both of their Mangekyo Sharingan, and after that, the Susanoo will begin naturally developing. Susanoo literally translates to he with the ability to help by all means, and as one of the only ninjutsu that entails the creation of another being, I think this is a pretty fitting name for it. Now, for all two of you who don't know what it is, the Susanoo is like an extension of their creator's will, and it comes in the shape of an ethereal humanoid armed with various weapons. The Susanoo is typically thought of as both the ultimate offense and the ultimate defense, though this description applies to Itachi Uchiha's Susanoo in particular. Anyhow, the reason it's thought of this way is that the humanoid created by the Susanoo surrounds the user as it's being formed. This means that a user of the Susanoo stands on the inside of it, and as you can probably imagine, it has to be pretty big to compensate for that.
Correct.
Both of these traits complement each other very well and contribute greatly to the technique's effectiveness in battle. It's also important to keep in mind that the Susanoo is incredibly sturdy, and since it surrounds its user, this means that attacking them while the Susanoo is active is very difficult to do. To further add on to that, its large size allows it to both attack enemies from very far away and dish out attacks with incredible destructive power. So for anybody at Jonin level or below, the Susanoo is a nightmare to face off against.
Correct.
Of course, such a ludicrously powerful technique does come with a pretty high cost, like all Mangekyo Sharingan techniques do. And this cost is likely the highest of any of the abilities granted by the Mangekyo. The first and most obvious drawback associated with using the Susanoo is that it requires a monstrous amount of chakra to keep it active. There's not much more to say about that.
Correct.
That clause is pretty self-explanatory, but further adding on to this, Sasuke explains to the audience during his battle against the Swagkage that using the Susanoo causes the user to feel an intense amount of pain in every cell in their body. Whether this was a literal explanation or hyperbole isn't explained, but Sasuke does point out that the pain is excruciating even when using the Susanoo's lower stages. This seems to imply that higher levels of Susanoo use entail a more intense feeling of pain, but I'd also imagine that later stages of Susanoo drain a user's chakra more quickly as well. The final drawback associated with using the Susanoo is the progressive deterioration of its user's eyesight, though this issue is a bit more complicated than it might seem at face value. So, first of all, while it's not actually necessary for a person to have their Mangekyo Sharingan active to use the Susanoo, repeated use of it does contribute contribute to a person going blind over time, just like their other two Mangekyo abilities do. If a person causes themselves to go blind this way by overusing their Mangekyo Sharingan abilities, they will not be able to use their Susanoo anymore after that point. This was clearly shown to the audience when Sasuke's Susanoo completely disappeared after he went blind from Mangekyo Sharingan overuse. However, if a person goes blind for other reasons, they will still have access to their Susanoo, as shown when Madara was able to use his Susanoo with both of his eyes missing. And though this source isn't quite as credible, as also shown when Shisui was able to use his Susanoo with just one eye in one of the Naruto Shippuden
that is correct.
Ninja Storm Revolution cutscenes. One thing that makes the blindness caused by Susanoo overuse pretty difficult to work around is the fact that progressing the Susanoo to its higher stages requires that a person become seasoned in using it. It's necessary to have experience using the Susanoo to evolve it, which also means that to access more powerful stages of the Susanoo, a person has to use it repeatedly. This is pretty counterintuitive because by the time somebody has evolved it to its armored state, they will have already either nearly gone blind or completely gone blind, meaning that all of the time and effort they spent training to use their Susanoo will have gone to waste. As with every other Mangekyo Sharingan ability, it is possible to bypass this drawback by acquiring the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, which also serves to slightly lower the Susanoo's chakra cost as well. Now, as I've alluded to all video long, the Susanoo does have various stages of development that a person can access once they've unlocked them. After first acquiring the Susanoo, a person will only be able to access its initial stage, though as I mentioned earlier, repeated use of the Susanoo will eventually allow a person to access higher levels of it.
Yeah, they develop mastery, right?
Can still access its lower levels if they choose to, even if they have access to the Susanoo's final stage.
Correct.
Since the Susanoo's various forms vary quite drastically from one another in terms of appearance, power, and abilities, this is a very nice skill to have access to. Now, while each subsequent level of the Susanoo is vastly different from the one that preceded it, all of them do have a handful of traits in common. The Susanoo is capable of protecting its user from physical attacks at all stages, though its durability varies depending on what level is being used. Of course, this does mean it is possible to break through a Susanoo with brute force, though doing so becomes harder and harder as a person progresses it to its higher stages.
Correct.
In the rare event that the Susanoo is shattered, however, it will not regenerate and will only reappear once its user conjures it again. Additionally, while no physical attacks are capable of passing through the outside of the Susanoo, it's possible for a user to launch ninjutsu and other attacks of the same sort from the inside of the Susanoo. In other words, the barrier-like exterior of the Susanoo will always defend its user to the best of its ability, though never at the user's expense. This does come with a few weaknesses of its own, though. Since the Susanoo isn't completely solid, this does leave its user susceptible to sound-based attacks and visual genjutsu. But since the Sharingan makes a person almost entirely immune to visual genjutsu, this isn't much of a weakness anyway. Aside from this, a user of the Susanoo will always be suspended within it, regardless of what stage they are using. Now, it's generally very difficult to pull somebody out of their Susanoo without breaking it first, but in the rare event that this is done, the Susanoo will immediately dissipate. Even if a person was able to escape from inside of their Susanoo, this would just cause it to disappear, so there's no use for doing so. These are the only similarities between the various stages of the Susanoo, and they're also the only similarities between the Susanoo of various people. As many of you know already, the power, abilities, and appearance of a Susanoo is tied directly to the person who owns it. This means that even at the same development stage, the Susanoo of two different people will often be very different, with more than enough distinct differences to tell one apart from the other. The most notable of these is the color difference. For example, Sasuke's Susanoo is purple, Itachi's is orange, and Madara's is blue, but there are a few more subtle differences between individual Susanoo, and I'll get into explaining them as I explain its various development stages. The Susanoo's first stage allows its user to create its literal skeleton, complete with a ribcage, bones, and even a skull for a face. This level of the Susanoo can actually be broken down into various sub-stages, as it actually takes a while for a user of the Susanoo to advance all the way to the point that they have developed a full skeleton. Somebody who has freshly unlocked the ability to use their Susanoo will initially only...
Alright, so I want to point this out. This just came to my mind. This negative stigma concerning Uchiha's chakra reserves and or stamina can be quickly debunked with this, right? Think about it like this. Madara Uchiha, right, fought Hashirama when they were alive in their primes for, at the very minimum, several hours, and had his Susanoo awaken for a majority of that duration. That just illuminates the vast amount of chakra that Madara Uchiha had specifically, right? He had a perfect Susanoo, right? A perfect Susanoo, the final stage of evolution of a Susanoo's developmental stage. That clearly illuminates the high levels of chakra that Madara Uchiha had, right? And some of you are going to say, well, he's a very powerful Uchiha. He's a special case. All right, well, think about it like this. Itachi Uchiha against Sasuke, basically on his deathbed, was able to awaken a Susanoo. Think about it. He was almost dead already, and already faced and battled Sasuke for some time. When Sasuke, used his Kirin on him, he awakened his Susanoo. And it wasn't a full Susanoo, it was half-body Susanoo, but even that illuminates the fact that Uchihas actually have decent amount of chakra, right? Because it's obvious that, the developmental stage and size of Susanoo is directly proportional to the amount of chakra that will be required to summon such as Susanoo, right? So Itachi was able to use that basically on his deathbed. That should illuminate the fact that, yeah, this guy has pretty good amounts of chakra, even when he's on death's door. He was literally almost dead. He was half dead and was still able to do the things he did against Sasuke, right? Itachi in particular gets a negative stigma because of the Genjutsu, the Tsukuyomi. But I'd argue that the Tsukuyomi in particular is a high chakra using Genjutsu because of the amazing results that you get from using it. I mean, you're literally controlling space and time and reality to the fullest extent of the person caught in it. He literally has all control of what takes place in the victim's mind. That should kind of illuminate and kind of imply that a Genjutsu of that magnitude would require vast amounts of chakra. So I really think that this illuminates not the fact that Itachi has low chakra reserves, but the fact that the Genjutsu he has access to in particular is a very high draining Genjutsu. His Genjutsu is arguably, besides, the infinite Project Susanoo that was used at the very end of the war arc, besides that, his Genjutsu is the god of Genjutsus, basically. So it makes sense why it drains him so quickly, right? The Genjutsu, narratively, could be said to take up more chakra than using a Susanoo. Honestly. At least for Itachi's case, right? Because he's the only one that can use Tsukuyomi. So we can only use him. But I think the negative stigma that surrounds Uchihas, and more specifically Itachi, is not well placed and not well thought out. Because if you think about it logically, you would come to the realization that Itachi and Uchihas in general have tons of chakra. They actually do. Now, do they have as much as a Senju or Uzumaki? I don't think so. I wouldn't go that far, but, part of being a very formidable shinobi is having high amounts of chakra. Not for every shinobi, right? Not every shinobi, but it's a common trend to some extent. So I think the Susanoo in general really illuminates the fact that Uchihas do have high levels of chakra, because they're summoning basically these transformer-like humanoid avatars from their will. They're massive. All of them. Especially Madara's and adult Sasuke's. They're massive humanoid extensions of will. And they're able to wield these things and create some amazing results. Amazing offensive capabilities, amazing destructive capability, and some amazing defensive tools at their disposal. This is pretty grand when you think about it in the world of Naruto. This is a grand and grandiose kind of ability. It really illuminates the threatening nature of the Uchiha, and transitively illuminates the high levels of chakra that they actually have. So I just wanted to say that the negative stigma is definitely misplaced and not well thought out when it comes to stamina for Uchihas. Let's continue.
Only be able to manifest its ribcage. This can be used for defensive purposes, but not much else. The only differences that exist between users across this stage are its color and its durability. It seems possible to increase this ribcage's durability by using the Susanoo repeatedly, as made evident by the fact that the 4th Raikage was able to break through Sasuke's Susanoo at this stage, but couldn't do the same thing to Madara. The next sub-stage of the skeletal Susanoo allows its user to manifest arms, and this is where differences become a bit more apparent. While Itachi and Sasuke just created basic arms with clenched fists at the end of them in this stage, the arm created by Madara during this stage is actually bladed and has a sword in place of a fist. Typically at this stage, users of the Susanoo only create one arm, and it isn't until they advance to the next stage that they create two. The next sub-stage of the skeletal Susanoo is the entire thing. It doesn't involve the creation of an entire skeleton, but rather the entire upper half of a skeleton. Now, despite what I just mentioned about the Susanoo's arms, it is possible to advance into this stage without creating two arms, and Madara has even shown the ability to do it without creating either arm. Both of these stages grant the Susanoo offensive potential that the basic ribcage did not have, though obviously it isn't until the entire skeleton is formed that the user is able to use this stage of the Susanoo to its fullest. The differences between various Susanoo at the final level of the skeletal stage are very minor, if even present at all to begin with, as in most cases a person's Susanoo will not conjure weapons at this stage. An exception to this rule has been seen when Sasuke conjured a sword in his skeletal Susanoo's hands during the fight against Kabuto, but it might be possible for all users of Susanoo to conjure this weapon at this stage, since having a Susanoo that wields a sword certainly isn't unique to Sasuke. Anyhow, though it's not as durable or well armed as later stages of the Susanoo, the skeletal stage is still pretty powerful and difficult to fight against. If the strength of Sasuke's is anything to base this on, one punch from this level of the Susanoo is enough to kill somebody. Danzo actually died after being punched by Sasuke's skeletal Susanoo and had to use Izanagi to return himself to life. Also, I guess it's possible to create 4 arms for your Susanoo at this stage, even though Susanoo users don't do this all the time, so I don't really know if there are any limits.
That was a weird event.
Throw that out there. This ability is also retained in later stages too, so yeah, I guess that's worth keeping in mind. Anyhow, the next stage of the Susanoo is what is typically referred to as the Humanoid Susanoo. At this stage, a person's Susanoo will typically have a more human-like face than the skeleton seen in the previous stage, and the ribcage that's visible in the skeletal Susanoo can no longer be seen here. In most cases, at this level, the Susanoo will begin to materialize flesh, and will then materialize clothing of some sort on top of that. Of course, at this level, the Susanoo is obviously more powerful. It's more durable, and its basic attacks have a wider range. But what really sets it apart from the skeletal stage is that the Humanoid Susanoo is typically granted a unique weapon based on the user. Itachi and Madara can both use the Yasuka Magatama beads at this stage, and Madara can additionally conjure 4 swords in each hand of his Susanoo, while Itachi gains access to the Totsuka blade, which can seal anything it comes into contact with, and the Yada mirror, which can reflect any physical attack.
Very OP
gains
tools.
access to a crossbow, and after he gains the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, he can light the arrows he shoots from this crossbow on fire with Amaterasu, or even shoot arrows composed entirely of Amaterasu flames with Ento and Kagatsuchi. Shisui Susanoo wields a hybrid between a drill and a spear in this stage, and he can also shoot out needles composed entirely of his Susanoo's chakra, and he can even coat this drill in flames using his fire release jutsu to increase its effectiveness and make surviving getting hit by it pretty much impossible. Skilled users of the Susanoo can also manifest legs for their Susanoo at this stage, which drastically increases its mobility. Now, the only people confirmed to be capable of doing so are the only people who have access to the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan in the series, Madara and Sasuke, so I don't know if a person's required to have the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan before this can be done, or if this is a trait that's only unique to certain Susanoo. Now, if you thought this level of the Susanoo sounded powerful enough, well, we still have 3 more stages of the Susanoo to go. The next level is the Armored Susanoo, which isn't significantly different from the Humanoid Susanoo. Aside from its color, appearance, and size, this level of the Susanoo doesn't seem to have too many differences spread across its various users, though it's a bit hard to say because Sasuke, Itachi, and Madara are the only people to ever pull this stage of the Susanoo out, and all 3 of them do it very briefly. Obviously, it's more powerful and more durable than the Humanoid Susanoo, and it obviously looks quite a bit different since, as its name implies, this stage of the Susanoo causes it to manifest armor on top of the clothing and flesh it manifests.
So added durability as a result,
that, I can't tell you much about it. I will say that Madara's is gigantic, and Sasuke
massive.
and Itachi's both look pretty similar, but that's really all I can think to say about it. It also doesn't seem to be possible to sprout legs out of this form of the Susanoo, since neither Madara or Sasuke do this, despite the fact that they could do so in the previous stage. I could be wrong about that, but, you know, just thought I would mention it. Anyhow, this is typically the last stage of Susanoo that a person can access before they go blind from Mangekyo Sharingan overuse. And before Madara showed up in the series, it was thought that this was the extent of a Susanoo user's capabilities. Even when Sasuke gained the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, he didn't exceed this level of the Susanoo, though it is worth pointing out that he did show a lot more finesse with using this stage of Susanoo. He gained access to the Yasuka Magatama beads and he could coat them inside of Amaterasu, and he showed on many occasions that he was able to combine his use of Susanoo with both of his Mangekyo Sharingan powers. Next, oh boy, next we have the Perfect Susanoo, or
massive.
as it's officially called in the data books, the Complete Body Susanoo. This Susanoo is to the Armored Susanoo what the Armored Susanoo is to the Ribcage Susanoo. In terms of appearance, it looks really cool, but it's a bit ridiculous. Madara's Perfect Susanoo is probably bigger than his statue in the Valley of the End.
It's massive, it's massive.
The previous stage of Susanoo is a massive understatement. Setting aside size and looking at pure aesthetics, though, the Complete Body Susanoo is almost completely different from any of the previous stages. It has Tengu-esque armor, and seems to wear a mask with a combination of robes and armor plates. Most Perfect Susanoo are also armed with a sword, though Madara's is armed armed with 2, Shisui's is armed with his lance, and Kakashi's is armed with Kamui shuriken. And each and every one of them comes with a set of wings that allows its user to fly. It is so dumb, dude. By unsheathing his sword and dragging it across the ground, Madara was able to create shockwaves capable of blowing apart an entire mountain range.
That's ridiculous.
The perfect Susanoo has power comparable to that of the tailed beasts. And I mean, I don't know why he would make a claim like that when it's clearly stronger than the tailed beasts, especially in the case of Hagoromo. It is dumb that he
it's pretty ridiculous.
Try and look past
Quite
that
ridiculous.
for how dumb this next bit of information is. Anyway, Hagoromo, he has a Susanoo that's like the size of the Ten Tails in the filler, where he can use perfect Susanoo. So
Jesus,
this ability is like stupid, dude. Sasuke was able to slash through like entire Chibaku Tensei planetoids like they were nothing at this stage of Susanoo. Madara was able to use it as armor for the Nine-Tailed Fox, and Sasuke and Naruto have been shown combining Naruto's Tailed Beast mode with Sasuke's perfect Susanoo on multiple occasions to create this behemoth of a creature that's almost unstoppable. But this still isn't the most powerful form of Susanoo in the series. After Sasuke absorbed the chakra from all Nine-Tailed Beasts at once, his Susanoo evolved into what many people call the final Susanoo, the ultimate Susanoo, or the Indra Susanoo.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
I mean, it looks awesome.
Power of biblical proportions,
exactly
no doubt.
Like the perfect Susanoo, with the only difference being that the mask is lifted up and all of the crevices between the armor are emanating pure chakra. Now, there are a few more aspects to the Susanoo that I would like to go over, but because of how personalized it is, many of the things I'd like to talk about involve discussing the abilities of individual Susanoo from various people. And while you might be wondering why I didn't cover how it's possible to unlock the perfect Susanoo, well, that's because it varies from person to person. And I mean, if I were to do that, I'd be here all day. I wouldn't have enough time to get this video out. So you can expect me to break down the abilities of individual Susanoo in separate videos that I plan on doing, where I hope to break down the entire skill set of individual characters. So yeah, this is where I'm gonna end the video off. Sorry about that in advance, but you know, I have to get out to
great video, Swag, as always. Great video.
For me to make like a 20+ minute video and still make the deadline. It was actually hard enough making this 15 minutes, so yeah. Anyhow, thank you so much for watching the video all the way to the end. This was a bit more lengthy than usual, so I appreciate your patience. If you're new here and you made it this far, consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel.
Great stuff, Swag. Great stuff.
New content. And if you really love me, you can check the description for the links to my Twitter and Patreon account. And of course, as always, leave any ideas for future video topics you want me to cover down in the comments below. The Susanoo video was one that was requested a bunch, so you know. But yeah, I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna go ahead and end the video. Hope to see you on my next video, and I hope you guys
Peace
have a
out.
fantastic rest of the day. But until then, yeah, talk to you later. Swagkage out. Bye.
Peace. Alright guys, there you guys have it. That's the explanation of the Susanoo in depth. I thought it was a very good dissection of this ability by Swagkage. And to give my 2 cents here, yes, I do agree with Swag to every bit that I can when he says this ability is ridiculous. I mean, the things that you can accomplish with this kind of ability is quite remarkable. Like Madara slashing mountains like they were, you know, butter and he was using a hot knife. Like, it's ridiculous. It can generate vast amounts of power and conversely generate extreme defensive capabilities. I mean, the Raikage wasn't able to even break Madara Susanoo, right? And because his Susanoo was so sturdy defensively speaking. Itachi is a special case with his magical tools at his disposal, the Yaramir and the Tulska Blade. Those are pretty OP abilities, pretty OP tools, and he could probably do some crazy stuff with that if we would have seen more of it from him. He can seal you with the Tulska Blade and block any attack with the Yaramir. That's quite remarkable as well. And adult Sasuke now, right, at least in Boruto and once he gets his abilities in the War Arc, can do some pretty remarkable things with his Susanoo. You know, with this remarkable creature that Sasuke and Naruto combined to create, they can go against the likes of Otsutsuki level threats such as Momoshiki and take them down. That's remarkable. Truly remarkable. So this Susanoo is truly a remarkable tool. It is most definitely, aesthetically speaking, one of the coolest looking abilities in all of Naruto. I mean, it's literally, like I said, a giant transformer at your disposal. And it's almost like you're a Green Lantern, like I said earlier also, from DC Comics. It's like you have the ability to extend your will into this humanoid avatar-like creature that will do your bidding for you, right? You're protected. You're not using your own flesh. You're using an extension of your will to accomplish your goals and or tasks. That's pretty remarkable. It's a pretty amazing thing to do. It's a pretty amazing ability to have. And As far as the writing of this ability, I think it was beautifully done. I think Kishimoto thought this out very cleverly and approached it very well. I mean, you know, the debut of it was beautiful, right, with Itachi using his, and we kind of got a glimpse of what Uchiha really can do. That's the way I look at it when we first saw the Susanoo on screen or on the panel in the manga. And then we get a glimpse of just ridiculous power with Madara, and then ridiculous power with Sasuke when he got his full power Susanoo after Hagoromo gave him the 6-pass chakra. All in all, it's an amazing ability, and I think it will forever be one of the best abilities in the history of the Naruto verse. But yeah, guys, this was a very good video. I definitely had to check it out. The Susanoo is one of my personal favorite abilities. And please let me know in the comments, what do you guys think of this ability? What are your thoughts on it? Is it one of the coolest? Do you not like it as much as others or as me? Please let me know. I'm always interested to hear your thoughts. But yeah, guys, going to wrap it up. If you guys have any recommendations, please let me know in the comments. And I'll catch you in the next video. It's Jay the Great signing out. Peace.